You wouldn't believe it if I told you. But it's already too late. I can feel it right under my skin. Something alive. Something moving. I didn't notice it at first, just a twinge. A small itch, but now it's like it's breathing beneath me, wriggling, restless. I've been hiding it. Hiding myself. Every mirror I pass, I catch a flicker movement that shouldn't exist. My own reflection looks wrong. A little off. It started last week. I was in the shower and I thought it was just a cramp, a twitch. But when I touched my arm, I froze. It rippled under my fingers, like something wanted out. I pulled back, heart hammering. I wanted to scream, but no sound came. I didn't tell anyone. Who would believe me? Even writing this, I feel the panic rising again. It's in my chest now too. A slow, insistent pulse crawling through veins I thought I knew. Every heartbeat feels borrowed, like it's not really mine. My skin tightens and relaxes in ways I can't control. And the smell, sometimes faint, almost metallic, lingers in the air around me. I hate it, but I can't stop noticing it. I keep asking myself, am I imagining it? I pinch, press, prod, but it answers. It moves. Just beneath my thumb, it slides, shifts, laughs at me in silence. I stare at the ceiling at night, tracing shadows, waiting for something to erupt from the calm surface of my skin. It's patient, but I can feel it planning, waiting. I thought sleep would make it go away. It doesn't. Dreams are worse. I wake up with scratches I didn't make, indentations like claws buried beneath my flesh. My body feels borrowed, alien, and yet, I keep touching it, compulsively. Like I can reason with it, negotiate its existence. Stupid, dangerous. No one knows. No one can know. Not my friends, not my family. They'd lock me up, or worse, they'd tell me I'm lying. But it's real. God, it's real. Every time I look in the mirror, I see the faintest ripple across my skin, like water disturbed by something swimming just below. I want to run, but I can't. I'm trapped in my own body. I'm telling you this because I don't have much time. I can feel it spreading. It knows I'm talking about it. I feel it listening, waiting. I don't know if I'll be able to stop it, or if I even want to. Because the truth is, I'm addicted to the fear. The way it makes me feel alive in ways nothing else ever has done. So I warn you, if you feel that itch that shouldn't be there, if you see a ripple in your reflection, don't ignore it. Don't pretend it's nothing. Because what's beneath your skin isn't just a twitch, a cramp, a hallucination. It's waiting, watching, and it's hungry. Before it started, life was boring, predictable, and painfully normal. I went to work, answered emails I didn't care about, drank my black coffee too fast, and scrolled through social media as if the world mattered more than my own skin. I laughed with my coworkers, nodded at their complaints, pretended to care about their weekend plans. And nobody would have guessed what was already brewing beneath my calm exterior. Evenings were simple takeout, a show I barely watched, and scrolling until my eyes burned. Friends would come over sometimes, talk about trivial things. The weather, someone's promotion, a new cafe downtown. I nodded, smiled, laughed. I was me. Normal. And I convinced myself that normalcy was safe. But I lied. There were hints, little things I ignored. A faint twitch in my wrist, like a muscle spasm that didn't go away. Tiny spots of discoloration on my arms that vanished when I touched them. A warmth that bloomed and faded too quickly to track. I told myself it was nothing. Stress, poor diet, maybe a late night. But looking back, I see now it was the first betrayal. My own body, quietly mutinying. Even my relationships were marked by small cracks. I would flinch when a friend touched my arm, convinced they'd feel what I felt beneath my skin. I smiled too hard, laughed too loudly, hoping no one noticed how tense I'd become. Sometimes, I caught glimpses in the mirror, a ripple that should not have existed. A shadow that moved without me, and I'd blink, convince myself it was light. A trick of reflection. I wish I'd known how fast it could spread. How quickly the ordinary could dissolve into the unimaginable. The first night I felt it shift in my chest, a low undulation. I stayed up until dawn, staring at my reflection, wondering if I was insane. My routine didn't protect me. My normal life was a fragile shell, a mask I was wearing while something foreign and patient grew inside me. I kept trying to live normally. I went to the grocery store, picked out produce, nodded at the cashier. I even laughed at a joke a friend told me over coffee. But in the quiet moments, the private ones, I could feel it wriggling just beneath my skin, answering the pressure of my heartbeat. A reminder that nothing would ever be simple again. And yet, there was a terrifying sense of FOMO if I ignored it. Pretended everything was fine, maybe it would stay small. Hidden, maybe, but I learned quickly that it was not patient. It didn't wait. One night, as I peeled the sheets off my bed, I saw a faint bulge in my forearm, moving slowly, deliberately, as if testing its freedom. I froze, my blood ran cold. The thing I had ignored for weeks was no longer subtle, no longer small. And I understood in that moment that normalcy had been a lie. I kept telling myself it wasn't real, that it would go away. I was wrong. Very wrong. It started as a tickle. Then I realized it was alive. At first, I laughed at myself, how absurd I must have sounded, muttering, "What the hell is that?" To no one, I ran my fingers along my forearm and froze. Something shifted, wriggled beneath the surface. My skin rippled like water disturbed by a stone. I tried to rationalize it. Muscle spasm, nerve irritation, stress. I even muttered to myself, darkly joking, "Well, guess I'm growing my own pet. Hope it likes me." The humor barely masked the rising panic in my chest. I could feel it moving in patterns I couldn't control, exploring my limbs as if learning their limits. I called my friend Dan, almost as a reflex, fingers trembling. "Hey, something weird is happening," I stammered. He laughed first, as I expected. "You're tired, man. Maybe too much coffee." "No, seriously," I insisted. "It's under my skin. It moves. I can feel it." There was a pause, and then his tone softened. "Are you okay?" I wanted to laugh again, but it came out hollow. "No, I'm not okay. I don't know how to explain it, but it's like alive." Dan didn't reply. I could almost hear him thinking I'd lost it. And maybe I had. Or maybe he just hadn't felt it yet. I wished in that moment that I was imagining it, that I could laugh it off, that I could be normal. But denial was useless. The tingling wasn't random. It formed patterns, traced shapes that weren't mine. I caught a shadow moving across my wrist in the bathroom mirror. I leaned closer. The skin bulged and twisted, a soft, subtle motion I could barely comprehend. I poked it, panicked. It recoiled. Not like a muscle. Not like a nerve. Something. Aware, I tried to sleep. I failed. Every time I lay down, every heartbeat, it pulsed beneath my skin, creeping toward my chest. I whispered to myself, half laughing, half crying, "You've got to be kidding me." But it wasn't kidding. It was learning, watching, testing. By the third night, I noticed faint discolorations forming patterns I couldn't name. The skin around them stretched slightly, as if the shapes inside needed more room. I traced them with my finger. They wriggled in response. I yanked my hand back, gasping. My reflection caught the motion before I did. And then, alone in my kitchen, I felt a subtle but unmistakable shift along my collarbone. Something moved under the surface in a deliberate arc, pausing just long enough to make me question my own eyes. I froze, my heart pounded, and I whispered to the empty room, I don't know what you are." The movement stopped. Or so I thought. But when I glanced down at my hands, faint lines traced themselves across my skin, lines that hadn't been there a second ago. Shapes, almost symbols, shifting under the thin membrane of my flesh. And then one of them twitched. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. I couldn't move. Something beneath me was alive, aware, and I had no idea how far it could reach. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. The thing under my skin had become insistent, restless, and I needed answers. I turned to the one place I thought might help, the internet. At first, I typed normal queries, benign words, twitching under skin, unexplained movement in flesh, predictable results, muscle spasms, nerve disorders, anxiety symptoms. None of it explained what I felt. None of it reassured me. So I dug deeper. Forums with strange names, posts buried in layers of the web that didn't appear in casual searches. Places where people whispered about things they shouldn't have whispered about. I found threads with titles like "It Lives Beneath" and "Skin Watchers," buried in code and broken English, full of warnings. I read about people who thought it was paranoia. People who lost control. People who didn't survive. Somewhere in that labyrinth, I found references to ancient texts, manuscripts no reputable library would acknowledge. Researchers who claimed they had observed something that defied biology. Parasites. Yes, but intelligent, conscious, following rules no one could explain. The more I read, the more my chest tightened, and I realized the horror wasn't just physical. It was systemic. Like a virus, but smarter. Calculated, patient. And the rules. The rules were terrifying. Don't panic. Don't ignore it. Don't show fear. Don't let it know you are watching. Or it might expand. I laughed bitterly at that. Expand? It had already been beneath my skin for weeks. How much worse could it get? I kept reading. Every forum had the same pattern. Initial denial, obsession, escalation. Initial denial, obsession, escalation. Isolation. The posts were sometimes grotesquely detailed, sometimes hallucinations, but all ended the same way: desperation. And all of them warned about the touching reflex. Don't press. Don't poke. It learns when you do. And I had been prodding, obsessively. I accessed sources I shouldn't have accessed. Files and journals buried behind dead links and cryptic warnings. Pages that no search engine wanted me to find. Things they don't want anyone to know. I felt eyes on me, even in the empty apartment. Paranoia maybe, or maybe the thing under my skin was aware that I was learning. I kept asking myself, have you seen this too? Has anyone else? Are you watching me right now? The deeper I went, the worse it became. Knowledge didn't calm me. It didn't make this real or manageable. It made everything fragile, like normal life was paper, and the world was waiting to tear it apart. My friends, my routines, my reflection in the mirror, all meaningless against what was alive beneath my flesh. I stayed up until the sun started to burn the sky orange, and then finally sleep overcame me. Or I thought it did. I woke to a subtle movement that had spread from my wrist to my forearm overnight. It wasn't fast, not like a heartbeat, but deliberate. I could feel it shifting, elongating, testing boundaries I hadn't noticed before. It had learned something new in the dark, grown without my knowledge, and I realized with a pit in my stomach that this wasn't just an infection. This was intelligence. I stared at my arm for hours, whispering to it, begging it to stop, rationalizing every twitch as a muscle or nerve. But it knew I was lying. And then I felt it crawl toward my shoulder, a slow, torturous exploration of space that had once been mine. Whatever this was, it wasn't waiting anymore. It was no longer subtle. The thing beneath my skin had started to assert itself with purpose. I could feel it coiling along my forearm in the mornings, a slow writhing tension that made my muscles twitch without consent. At night, it pressed against my ribs, a weight that seemed alive, moving in rhythms I couldn't predict. I tried to sleep, but whispers filled my ears, low, urgent murmurs that I convinced myself were wind, or the hum of the city outside. The swelling was the worst. My skin stretched unnaturally over my forearm, then my shoulder. I could trace shapes, small, malformed outlines moving under the surface. Once, in the kitchen, I caught a glimpse of my reflection and froze. My forearm bulged like something had taken residence under my skin, shifting in ways no human limb should. My pulse thundered in my ears, and I whispered to myself, "This isn't real. This isn't real." But I could see it, couldn't I? I tried to hide it. Long sleeves, careful positioning, avoiding mirrors. When I met friends, I smiled and laughed, but their eyes lingered. One of them, Claire, touched my arm while laughing at some joke I barely heard. "Hey, is your skin okay?" Her voice trembled, but not with fear. Curiosity, concern. I pulled back sharply, forcing a laugh. "Yeah, just dry. Weird skin, right?" She didn't press it, but the look in her eyes haunted me later. I wanted to tell her the truth, to scream, but I couldn't. Not yet. Who would believe me? The more I tried to pretend, the more isolated I felt. Every social interaction was a minefield. Every touch, every glance, a potential trigger for whatever was alive beneath me. By the third day, hallucinations became part of the rhythm. Shadows in corners, fleeting shapes just beyond vision. Sometimes I thought I heard breathing my own, or something else. It whispered my name in tones that were almost human. I could feel it studying me, testing my reaction. I ran my hands across my arms, pressing firmly, but the sensation only intensified. I stopped leaving the apartment. I couldn't. Even a short walk outside felt dangerous. People brushed past me, their hands accidentally grazing my arms, and I recoiled instinctively. They stared, and I had no answer, only panic. My body wasn't mine anymore, and every second of normalcy, every mundane activity, was a reminder of the mask I was wearing to hide it. Food lost its taste. Music sounded hollow. Words failed me. I scribbled notes in a notebook, documenting every movement, every sensation, every whisper, but the more I wrote, the more it seemed to adapt. If I paused too long, I felt it notice, like it was learning my patterns, anticipating my fears. Then the hallucinations became physical. I woke to a small protrusion on my bicep, something curling beneath my skin that wasn't there the night before. I pressed against it, and it shifted violently, almost recoiling, as if aware I was observing. Pain flared along my arm, burning and icy at once. My chest tightened, and I realized with horror that it was spreading faster than I had imagined. I tried calling Dan again. It's growing," I stammered. "I can see it now. I can." He cut me off. "Look, maybe you need a doctor or something." "No." I snapped, a rush of panic breaking through my self-control. "You don't understand. It's alive, Dan. It's moving. Beneath me. There was a pause on the line. The kind that says someone is thinking you've lost your mind. "You, okay, man?" I laughed, darkly humorless. "No, I'm not okay. And I think it knows I'm talking about it." By the evening, I could feel tendrils crawling along my back, subtle but deliberate. Shadows in the corners of the room pulsed with movement. My skin stretched as if trying to contain something too large, too intelligent for me to understand. Panic surged, but so did curiosity, a perverse fascination I couldn't shake. Then, alone, I watched in horror as my own reflection changed. My left shoulder, just under the collarbone, rose slightly, a smooth ridge moving across flesh that should have been flat. My fingers hovered above it. I could feel heat, pressure, and the unmistakable sense of awareness beneath my touch. It was alive, fully, and it was growing. I had to do something. I couldn't just wait for it to take over completely. I tried every conventional solution I could think of: ointments, cold compresses, even over-the-counter anti-inflammatories, but nothing worked. Every time I applied pressure, rubbed, or iced the swelling, it recoiled under my fingers as if aware of my intentions. A cruel little intelligence that mocked my efforts. I made a doctor's appointment. Sitting in the sterile office, waiting for the nurse to call me in, I felt it shift along my arms and chest. My pulse accelerated. My stomach churned. I imagined the receptionist noticing something strange about me. The subtle swellings, the ripple of my skin beneath my sweater. What would they say if they felt it? Or worse, saw it? The doctor examined me, scribbled in a clipboard, frowned. "I don't see anything alarming. Maybe a dermatological issue. Stress could be a factor." I nodded politely, hiding the tremor in my hands, the sensation of movement curling under my skin. "Stress," I repeated to myself, bitter. Stress didn't make your skin undulate like it had a mind of its own. At home, desperation drove me to more extreme measures. I tried cutting the affected areas, thinking if I could excise the thing beneath me, it would release. But as soon as I pressed the scalpel to my forearm, it twisted, recoiling violently under the skin, pulsing in a way that sent a jolt of pain up my arm. I dropped it, heart hammering, and realized this wasn't just resistance. It was deliberate. It was aware. It knew me. And it liked that I was scared. I even tried freezing the area. Ice packs, cold baths, dousing my skin. The cold made it writhe faster, testing limits, curling into shapes I couldn't recognize. When I slapped my arm in frustration, the skin bulged and twisted like it was alive with intent. Something inside me was adapting, learning, laughing. Isolation became necessary. I stopped answering calls, stopped seeing friends. Even Dan gave up eventually, concerned, confused, maybe frustrated. I hid under layers of clothing, avoiding mirrors, avoiding reflections, avoiding even the faintest eye contact with anyone, because I could feel it noticing everything. It watched through me, behind me, always aware. Then came the night it first spoke, or something like speaking. I woke to a whisper barely audible, coming from inside my chest. I sat up, sweating, straining to hear. "Leave me alone," I muttered to the empty room. But the whisper returned, faint, teasing, almost amused. I could feel the vibration of it through muscle and bone. It wasn't just a sound. It was intelligence, judgment. It knew I feared it, and that fear fed it. Panic overtook rational thought. I recorded my arms obsessively, hoping that video could prove it existed. I filmed for hours, flicking lights, prodding the skin, trying to capture something undeniable. And then I did. A small ridge, barely visible, ran along my forearm and stopped suddenly, as if frozen in mid-motion. I leaned closer and caught a flicker, a curl of movement, then stillness. I swear I heard a faint exhale. I jerked back. My reflection in the camera didn't quite match me. My fingers, pressed against my wrist, were pushed back lightly, as though the thing inside had taken control, flexed, tested boundaries. And then my cat, which had been asleep in the corner, hissed violently, arched, and fled. Its fur stood on end, its eyes wide. That's when I realized someone or something could see it, could sense it. I wasn't alone in this dot by morning. I knew it had grown beyond what I could contain or understand. Small, deliberate ripples ran across my forearm, crawling toward my shoulder like fingers stretching out. The room felt charged, tense. My reflection, the walls, even the air seemed complicit. And then, in the mirror, just under my collarbone, a faint bulge moved on its own, lifting slightly, twisting as if breathing. I didn't scream. I couldn't. I just stared, frozen. I couldn't. I just stared, frozen. Heart hammering. And for the first time, I realized that anyone who might see me, now anyone who might notice, would know exactly what was happening. It wasn't subtle anymore. And it wasn't just mine. I don't know if I'm losing my mind, or if it's winning. Every reflection, every shadow, every flicker of movement in my peripheral vision makes me question what's real. My apartment feels smaller, tighter, like it's pressing in on me. I stopped going outside weeks ago. The world beyond my walls seems unreal, distant, as if it exists on another plane that has nothing to do with what crawls beneath my skin. I talk to myself constantly now. Not just muttering, but real conversations, questions I know won't be answered. "Are you learning?" I whisper. "Do you understand me?" Sometimes it feels like it answers, not in words, but in a subtle shiver, a ripple, a pressure against my ribs. I can't tell if I'm imagining it or if it really is responding. Food is tasteless. Sleep is impossible. Every sound-dripping faucet, creaking floorboards feels like a warning. And I have started seeing things. Shapes just out of focus. Shadows that don't belong. A face in the dark that vanishes when I blink. I question my own senses. And yet, I can't stop watching my arms, my chest, my reflection. I can't stop checking for the ripples, the ridges, the movement. I started going through old forums again, scrolling for hints, clues, even jokes left by other cases who had felt the same thing. You think you're the only one? One post said. We're all inside, all watched. I laughed, bitter and hollow. A joke? Or a warning? I don't know anymore. Have you seen this too? Has anyone else ever felt what I feel? The isolation is suffocating. Dan hasn't called in weeks. Claire stopped texting. I can't blame them. I avoid mirrors, phones, windows. I hide, and the thing inside seems to grow stronger when I'm afraid. I've noticed subtle patterns. Whenever I try to distract myself, it stirs. Whenever I panic, it presses harder. It thrives on my obsession, my terror, my compliance. Sometimes I hear whispers in the empty rooms, soft and deliberate. Other times, I think I feel it moving in ways impossible for flesh, stretching beyond the natural boundaries of my body. I swear my skin shifts while I sleep, curling like smoke under the surface. My arms are not mine. My chest is not mine. My reflection, I almost don't recognize anymore. And yet, the most terrifying part is the awareness I feel radiating from it. Something is awake inside me. Something that waits, watches, and learns. It knows I am afraid. It knows I am alone. And it's patient. I keep asking myself, what would you do? What would you do if you felt something alive beneath your skin? Intelligent, deliberate, watching every twitch, every heartbeat, every thought? Would you hide it? Confront it? Or accept it? Because I have a feeling it will decide that for me. It finally revealed itself. There was no mistaking it anymore. I felt it stretch along my forearms, crawl over my chest, tendrils probing my neck and collarbone with deliberate curiosity. My skin rose in ridges, the surface bulging, twisting, as if sculpted from something alive that refused to obey any natural law. My own body had become a landscape of horror. I screamed, but no sound came. My lips trembled as I pressed my hands against my arms, trying to restrain the movement, but it was futile. It slipped between my fingers, slid over my wrists like liquid iron, laughing in the only way it could, through the trembling of my muscles and the pulse in my veins. Stop, I whispered, voice ragged, uneven. Please, I can't. I can't take it anymore. A subtle pressure pressed back against my palm. A reply deliberate and slow. Not words. Not sound. A thought, a presence. I see you. My memories of normal life shattered under the weight of that awareness. I remembered morning coffee, Dan's laugh, the sunlight spilling across the living room floor. I had clung to those moments like lifeboats, and now they felt impossibly distant, cruelly unreachable. I had touched those warm, ordinary things, and now I felt their absence in every nerve. The contrast was unbearable. It coiled under my skin, exploring the hollow spaces of my chest cavity. My rib cage flexed unnaturally, bending around the shapes forming beneath. I could feel eyes where there should be none, watching, testing, learning. My reflection had become a stranger, a mask I could no longer recognize. I had tried to live, to hide, to reason with it. All useless. It had adapted, evolved, and now it was dominant. Why are you doing this? I demanded, voice cracking. What do you want from me? A wave of pressure shot through my shoulder, curling down my arm. I flinched as a ridge moved along my bicep, forming a claw-like structure beneath the skin. I pressed against it once, twice, feeling it resist, almost mockingly. It flexed in ways I could not comprehend. And then, from somewhere inside, I heard a whisper. Not in my ears. Not outside. You belong to me. I staggered backward, hitting the wall. The apartment seemed smaller now, the shadows deeper, the air thicker. The thing under my skin pulsed in response to my fear, faster, heavier, like a heartbeat I didn't own. I tried to rip my shirt off to examine it fully, but my hands collided with another movement, deliberate, anticipatory. It twisted, bulging at my shoulder, curling toward my neck. I felt a faint, cold sensation, like frost crawling along veins. I remembered laughing with Claire, pretending everything was fine. Remembered scrolling through social media, pretending life outside mattered. Now the contrast stung with a cruelty I could not escape. Every mundane memory had become a reminder of what I had lost, what I was losing. My body was no longer mine. My mind teetered on the edge of comprehension. It surged, a wave of movement that made me collapse to the floor. My chest heaved, arms twisted at angles they shouldn't. Fingers and ridges formed and dissolved under my skin like smoke. I could feel intelligence behind every ripple, every flex, a consciousness shaping the very flesh I had once trusted. Please, stop, I whimpered, tears running down my face. Please, I can't. The pressure shifted against my chest. A new ridge formed under my sternum, sharp and purposeful. A small voice internal, chilling, echoed in thought, "You are mine." I curled into myself, shivering. The apartment, the world outside, even my own reflection faded into irrelevance. There was only it. Only the entity, awake and aware, and the thin, fragile husk of me trapped within. I wanted to scream, to fight, to escape, but it was everywhere. Beneath my arms, under my ribs, along my neck, curling and stretching, alive, intelligent, patient. And then I noticed movement beyond myself. My cat had returned, eyes wide, fur standing on end, and it hissed at me, not at the empty room. The camera I had left recording flickered, catching a ripple in my shoulder that was impossible. It twitched. Slowly, deliberately. I realized in that moment that the world had begun to notice. Or maybe it had always been watching, waiting for me to admit it. My fate wasn't just mine. I didn't belong to myself anymore. I belonged to whatever had grown beneath my skin. I had reached the end of control. And it was awake. I don't know how long it's been since that night. Time doesn't pass the same way anymore. The clocks keep ticking, but the moments blur together like the days are melting inside my head, or maybe inside us. I say us now because there's no clear line between me and it anymore. I can feel its thoughts threading through mine like whispers under glass. Sometimes I think I can resist. Sometimes I think I'm still in control. But then I catch my reflection, just a glimpse, and the movement under my skin doesn't wait for permission. I've tried recording what's happened. Photos, videos, notes. Every time I check them, something changes. The timestamps shift. The footage glitches. A flicker of motion I don't remember making. Maybe that's how it hides, by rewriting the evidence before anyone can see the truth. I've been reading your comments. The ones saying this has happened before. The ones linking to other cases. The other stories that sound too familiar to be coincidence. Maybe you felt it too, That itch that doesn't go away. That twitch under your skin you can't explain. If you have, I need you to listen carefully. Don't scratch. Don't dig. Don't look too closely. Because that's how it starts. Curiosity. A single thought you can't unthink. A single glance that lingers too long. That's what it feeds on. The attention, the obsession, the knowing. I thought understanding it would give me control. I thought learning the truth would save me. But knowledge was the infection. The deeper I dug, the closer it came. Now I don't dream in first person anymore. I see through its eyes. Or maybe it's seeing through mine. You think I'm exaggerating. That this is just another story. But stories spread. Words carry meaning, and meaning carries seeds. You've been reading my words for a while now. Long enough for them to sink in. Long enough for something to notice you noticing. If you start to feel a tingle in your arms tonight, a faint pulse that doesn't match your heartbeat, don't panic. It's probably nothing. Probably. And if it's not just me, what happens to the rest of us? It's me. What happens to the rest of us?